What up, y'all? I'm Anthony Goods. A lot of y'all may know me as the NBA scout on YouTube, but I am now an assistant coach at Arkansas State. This offseason, I tracked over 2,000 three-pointers from Steph Curry, Duncan Robinson, and Desmond Bane. And I wanted to answer one question. What actually makes elite shooters miss? In my Alex Caruso breakdown, I showed how he uses an early high hand to contest shots, which is basically contesting before the shooter gets into their motion. But does this actually bother the best shooters alive? We're about to find out, and you'll be surprised by the numbers in the last section. First, let me show what I mean by an early high hand. We teach this at Arkansas State, but an early high hand is a defender's contesting hand at the level or above the ball during the shooter's shooting motion. When we talk about late contest, that's when the contesting hand is below the ball during the shooting motion. During this study, I also tagged the defender height as well as closeout proximity, and these numbers will come into play later. Let's start with Steph Curry. I tracked 883 of his threes. He shot 40% on the season, but let's dive deeper into the numbers. On no contest threes, Steph shot 48% on the season. Some of these included flybys and some were just wide open threes, but there's no surprise he was able to make these at a high rate. The urgency to contest a Steph Curry three-pointer is obviously high, but he's still able to get some of these uncontested shots. Along with the other shooters in this study, around 15 to 17% of his three-point shots were uncontested on the season. If Steph Curry's on the floor, you definitely want to get a contest, so let's see how he shot on late contested shots. On the late contest, Steph shot 39%. The majority of his shots on the season had a late hand contest. Steph saw defenders of all different heights. And as I mentioned, I also tagged the proximity of the defender. Tight proximity was within 4 feet, moderate was 4 to 6, and 6 and above was a loose proximity. Regardless of proximity though, if you had a late hand contest and Steph had a clear look at the rim, it didn't really bother him. Now let's check out what he shot with an early high hand contest. And this is where we see Steph is not really human. On the season, Steph shot an impressive 36% with the early high hand contest. His percentage dropped, but not by much. You'll see in the rest of the video how crazy this number is, but we can look at it from this perspective. An early high hand can take the greatest shooter in the world down to an average three-point shooter. Of course, he's Steph, so he made some jaw-dropping shots with an early high hand contest, but what really bothered Steph wasn't the early high hand by itself. It was who the hand belonged to and the proximity of their contest. Against defenders in that 6'6" to 6'9" range, especially wings with length, his efficiency dipped way lower. But against smaller guards, they were cooked. And even against true bigs, unless they were there on time, he still found clean looks. For Curry, wings in that 6'6" to 6'9" range were the toughest defenders. Next up, Duncan Robinson, the pure catch and shoot specialist. Duncan shot 39% on the season and was the best uncontested shooter of the group, shooting 56% on uncontested three-pointers. Much like the other shooters, this was only 15% of his shots, but without a doubt, if he was open, these shots were going in. On late contested shots, similar to Steph Curry, Duncan shot 38% from three. Even on tight, late contested shots, he didn't seem to be bothered, which I equate to him being a 6'8" shooter. The problem with late hand contests is that you're unable to disrupt vision, and elite shooters will hurt you if you don't. Now let's see what Duncan shot on early high hand contests. Last season, Duncan Robinson shot 28% from three on an early high hand closeout or contest. That's a 10% drop just by getting a hand up a little faster. Proximity won't matter as much with the shooter of his size, but an early high hand is shown to really disrupt his shooting percentages. If you're able to get an early high hand contest within tight proximity, his percentages dip even further to 21%. Defender height didn't bother Duncan as much as an early high hand, but defenders 6'4" to 6'5" bothered him slightly more than 6'6" to 6'9" defenders. It was impressive to see Duncan's ability to make shots with a defender in tight proximity. He made a lot of these over the course of the season. Finally, we have Desmond Bane, and this one is shocking. Desmond Bane shot 39% from 3 on the season and shot 47% on uncontested attempts in Memphis last season. Like all the other shooters in this video, he's deadly if you don't get a hand up. On shots contested with a late high hand, he shot the best of the group at 42% from 3. Bane's shot profile is a little in between Steph and Duncan in that Bane is more of a dynamic shooter than Duncan with his higher volume of off-the-dribble three-pointers, but it's obviously less off-the-dribble three-pointers than Steph. But regardless of the shot type, 42% is an elite in-game percentage, even if the contests were slightly late. This is why he's one of the best shooters in the world. But now let's see the impact the early high hand can make on such an elite shooter. With an early high hand, Desmond Bane's percentage plummeted to 17% last season. That's a 25% difference in simply getting a hand up earlier. You can literally collapse an elite shooter's efficiency if and only if you can get an early high hand to contest. With dynamic shooters, this could be a bit difficult because you have to worry about them attacking off the dribble as well as on the catch. But if you have it at the top of mind, it can really be disruptive. Though we see how effective early high hand closeouts are, only 21% of these shooters' shots were early high hand contested. Some coaches probably don't teach it, and some players just simply don't have the discipline. But what's most difficult is getting that closeout proximity within 4 feet to really make an impact. So what actually makes elite shooters miss? For Curry, it was the proximity more so than it was the timing of the hand. For Duncan Robinson and Desmond Bane, the early high hand seemed to be more effective than the proximity. Defenders 6'6" to 6'9" were the most effective across the board, and we see why that profile of defender is so coveted by the NBA. For coaches out there, teach all of your players to get an early high hand no matter the size, but especially for those rangy defenders in that 6'6" to 6'9" window. And for players, trust the numbers and try to find better shots. If you see an early high hand closeout, you should probably be putting the ball on the floor trying to make another play. Hunting good shots drives up efficiency, and ultimately it'll drive up your value. But I'll have a whole series dedicated to shooting in the coming months that you definitely don't want to miss. But that's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and I got more content on the way. Now we're going to talk about what makes Alex Caruso unique and an elite defender that I haven't seen from many other defenders in the NBA. He already has the early high hand, but what he does is he uses the early high hand to swipe, and then he contests with the other or to disrupt the vision. I've seen him use this technique against many stars in the NBA, and it's extremely effective. Players are so good at it. It's disruptive to the shooter's motion because the ball can't take the normal pathway to his set point, which ultimately drops percentages. I love how he has the wherewithal to use the other hand to contest. This is obviously a more advanced technique, and I'm not sure I'd advise everyone to do this, but when it's perfected, it's definitely useful and disruptive.